When you know that you are queer, but your favorite drink is beer, that's gayish. You can bottom without stopping, but you can't stand going shopping, that's gayish. Oh, gayish, you're probably gayish. Well, life's just too short for narrow stereotypes, so it's gayish. We're also gayish. It's Gayish with Mike and Kyle.
Hello, everyone in the podcast universe. This is Gayish.
The podcast that's got 99 problems, but a genital itch ain't one.
Oh, well, not this week. I'm Mike Johnson.
I'm Kyle Getz.
We're here to bridge the gap between sexuality and actuality. And today, happy birthday, America.
Yeah, let's go, America. You've done it again.
Yeah, you don't look a day over however old you are.
Yeah. Today we're going to talk about whether Marvel or DC is better, right?
Yep, exactly right. And obviously we're going to talk about Thomas Edison and his fight with that other guy when he killed an elephant.
We're going to talk about the second half of that band.
Yep, exactly.
No, we're going to talk about the territory.
Yeah, which, I'm Washington, D.C. It's the 4th of July. That's the capital of our country. Jingoism, great. But also, although I'm in Boston now, I'm going to be in D.C. next week. And so I wanted to learn some shit.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you about DC. It's more interesting than I thought at first. So if you're like, this is going to be boring, then stop.
Great.
Stop doing that.
But first, here's the news.
Shut your mouth hole, it's time for your ear holes. News.
Do you have news?
Yeah.
Oh.
Should I not have?
No, I just didn't know what you were going to do about the two. We're recording 2 episodes in a row.
Yeah. We're recording 2 episodes in a row, everybody.
So that we don't have to record over Pride weekend and we can just be sluts.
Right. Drunk sluts.
Yeah.
But yeah, so these news stories are a week old, but whatever.
Okay.
News the first, Justice Sotomayor has indicated that the Supreme Court's ruling in an immigration case potentially threatens marriage equality. So our episode last week was on gay marriage, and Sonia Sotomayor is like a little worried. So
ringing the alarms.
Yeah. So it was a 6-3 ruling. It was the dickbag fuckface assholes against the women, which Amy Coney, that one, she doesn't count.
Yeah.
But the U.S. Supreme Court ruled on Friday that citizens do not have a fundamental liberty interest in bringing non-citizen spouses to the country. So basically, this woman named Sandra Munoz, who is an American citizen, who married Luis Asensio Cordero, who is a citizen of El Salvador, in 2010, and they applied for an immigrant visa. They're like, we're married. I'm an American citizen. You have to let him in, right? Mm-hmm. And they said no, and the Supreme Court agreed. So
weird.
A sort of thing that I thought was true always, that you could just like marry an American and move here. Apparently, no, not anymore.
Yeah, that's been a plot line of so many TV shows I've watched.
Right? Yeah, Amy Coney Barrett, who is just a real piece of work, wrote the decision and said, quote, a citizen does not have a fundamental liberty interest in her non-citizen spouse being admitted to the country. So Sotomayor, in her dissent, quoted Obergefell v. Hodges, and in which it said the right to marry is fundamental as a matter of history and tradition. She said that there is no question that excluding a citizen's spouse burdens her right to marriage, and that burden requires the government to provide at least a factual basis for its decision. She said, almost 10 years ago, this court vindicated the expansiveness of the right to marriage. It upheld the right of James Obergefell and his terminally ill husband, John Arthur, to have their marriage from Maryland recognized in Ohio. Munoz may be able to live in El Salvador alongside her husband, or at least visit him there, but not everyone is so lucky. The majority's holding will also extend to those people who, like the Lovings and the Obergefells, depend on American law for their marriage's validity. Same-sex couples may be forced to relocate to countries that do not recognize same-sex marriage, or even those that criminalize homosexuality. So I just think it's really interesting that the party of marriage is like, we don't care. Like, they really only care about white people, Kyle.
Yeah, and they care about they care about straight white Christians' marriage, not anyone else's.
Yep. And I don't know. I'm fucking terrified. Happy Pride, everybody.
I hope you had a great Pride.
News the second.
Yeah.
Anderson Lee Aldrich, who is the shooter that killed 5 people at the Club Q shooting in November of 22, which is in Colorado Springs, has reached a deal with prosecutors to accept 74 counts of federal hate crime charges.
Great.
So basically, there was, I mean, obviously guilty, already like knew that, but there was this question of whether it was going to be a federal hate crime or not. And those are notoriously difficult to make stick because it's hard to prove that hate is in the heart of a person unless they're like actively pulling the trigger while saying, I'm doing this because I hate gay people.
Yeah.
How do you prove that that's what's happening?
Yeah.
But U.S. District Judge Charlotte Sweeney, who is the first openly gay federal judge in Colorado,
Oh, wow.
oversaw this admission. Basically, it was, yes, we'll call it federal hate crimes if you don't pursue the death penalty, and the judge agreed. So this person is now serving 55 concurrent life sentences and an additional 190 years of imprisonment.
Damn.
So this person will never make it out of jail.
Soup's in jail.
Soup's in jail. There's one person who said that they were hoping that the death penalty would be imposed even if it didn't actually happen, which I don't know. That's interesting. But yeah, this is all in the same breath as this month, the last month now, the Colorado Republican Party sent a call that said burn all pride flags. And last year, there were at least 145 incidents of harassment, vandalism, and assault directed at LGBTQ plus people and events during Pride Month. That's according to a report from GLAAD. Shit's not great right now, but at least this person is being called to justice.
Yeah, it's like the right outcome and a good thing, and it's hard to get like super stoked about the outcome of like the Pulse nightclub shooting. It's kind of hard to be super excited about that.
Well, and this wasn't Pulse, it was Club Q, a different mass murder at a gay club. But,
gotcha.
You know, who's counting? Those happen every week. So, news the last?
Yeah.
Again, this is 2 weeks ago because that's how time works. And we're recording 2 episodes today. But Saturday, the 22nd of June, was the first UK Muslim Pride.
Oh, cool.
It happened in London. Hundreds of people were expected to attend. I assume they did and that everything was fine. It was a full day, quote, celebration of queer Muslim culture, activism, and history. It was originally scheduled for 2020, was canceled because of the pandemic, and it's taken them this long to get their shit back together to do it. There's a panel discussion, a bunch of workshops that focus on topics like Islamic feminism, being out as a Muslim, and entertainment for members of the community. Non-binary practicing Muslim Farhan Khan said, quote, "It's going to be filled with people who are just like me and understand me. I don't need to explain myself to them." I think it's really interesting.
That must be so nice to have a community that like fully understands everything about you, like without, that's the nice thing. Like when we're in LGBT spaces, like you get to skip past the like, oh, okay, like let's get over this whole gay thing. So that must be a nice community to have built up around you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and they said, quote, "There's an assumption that's not necessarily based in fact. If you read parts of the, let me back up.
Back it up.
Khan added that they want to help challenge the idea that Islam is inherently queer phobic. Quote, "That's not necessarily based on fact, because if you read the parts of the Quran that supposedly condemn homosexuality, it's not clear cut." That sounds like the Bible, doesn't it, Kyle?
Yep.
What this serves to do is invalidate the notion that you can be both queer and Muslim. For a lot of queer Muslims, this is a difficult one because they might want to retain their faith. They might want to simply be in a space where they are validated for being both queer and Muslim. And that's what Iman is doing, serving up a space where you can be validated for that choice. Apparently the tickets were sold out. There was a waiting list, and
Oh, wow.
so there's definitely a space for it.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the news.
That's the news. Speaking of places for you to be validated, join our Patreon.
Sure, I'll validate the hell out of you if you pay me.
Yeah, exactly. Give us money and we'll say nice things about you. Like our newest Patreon member, Mike Salpeter. Sorry, Mike. I don't know how to say your last name.
It's gonna be saltpeter, right?
Salpeter. I don't know. Anyway, it's one of those.
Saltpeter, the gunpowder ingredient.
Oh, I don't know. That's your straightest. If you want to join Patreon and help support this show and get ad-free episodes a day early, use Mike's Hole, get a t-shirt, get a discount on the merch store, join our Patreon happy hours, bunch of other benefits, go to patreon.com/Gayish podcast.
Do it if you love me.
Yeah.
All right. You want to talk about Washington, D.C.?
Let's talk about Washington, D.C.
First of all, Kyle, have you been to our nation's capital?
No, I have not.
Okay. Do you know that that's Washington, though?
I do at least know that part.
Okay, great.
I have a American education, which isn't that great, but I at least learned that.
Yeah. Well, I've been a few times. I went with my dad, and we did the tour of like the monuments, and walked around and went to Arlington Cemetery and a bunch of stuff like that. And like, it's really an impressive city.
Oh my God, I have been. I did an interview back when I was in college. So I didn't actually spend any time. I didn't do anything there. I just went to my job interview and then went home. But yeah, I have very briefly.
There's a parallel universe where you lived and breathed in Washington, D.C.
Yep. Oh. Absolutely.
Okay.
And we weren't friends and this podcast never happened.
Wow. Well, not sure which universe is better, but
I don't know either.
All right. Well, I'm going to talk to you about the history of Washington, D.C., Kyle.
Okay. All the things I should have learned in history class?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay. So here's the deal.
Okay.
Our history is fucked. And
great.
And it's extra fucked for a number of reasons. But I think the thing that is most fucked about our system and continues to be fucked is states. And we had 13 original colonies, and they were all states. And each state was basically its own little country. And that's why when we got in a fight with England and the king, we were super fucked because we had no togetherness whatsoever. Mm-hmm. They all had their own money. They all had their own laws. It was messy. So in 1789, when we wrote our second big old set of national laws, because the first ones failed miserably, we included in that document, the Constitution of 1789, that we needed to have a place that was the nation's capital. It had sort of been bouncing around before that. It was in Philadelphia, and it was in New York, and then back to Philadelphia, and then it was just all over the place. And every time, then the states would be like, why is the capital in New York? Why did they get all the fun? So this whole thing was basically okay, fine, fuckers, we'll carve out a spot that isn't a state. We'll put the capital there, and then nobody can bitch and say that they've got home turf advantage.
That's fine. No one's going to be happy then.
Right.
If you're going to bitch about it, then no one gets anything.
Yep. Indeed. So they added a provision in the Constitution that said that a place that was no more than 100 miles square would be designated by the government to be the place that this would happen. So fast forwarding a little bit, they found the shittiest swampland they could in between Maryland and Virginia and carved it out.
I bet people of DC love that descriptor of their...
Here's the thing. I'm pretty sure they know.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty sure that they know that they live in it was almost empty. There was just Georgetown and Alexandria, and they weren't that big because this place was awful. And, but they drew a diamond that was exactly 10 miles by 10 miles, because that's what the Constitution said was no more than 100 miles square. And they carved a little bit out of Virginia. They carved a little bit out of Maryland, straddling the Potomac River. Now, they ultimately decided to name it Washington after George Washington. And do you know how we were this close to having it be King George Washington?
Oh, no, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was like, I don't want that. No, don't do that. I don't want that. I'll be the president or whatever. But no, this is not a monarchy. He was an anti-monarchist. A lot of the founding fathers were, enough of them that that's not how we run things here.
Yeah. Sorry, England.
Sorry, indeed, England. Now, later, basically, the people that were in the Virginia part of it were like, our life sucks now. We can't vote for Congress, and our shit is falling apart and nobody will help us pay for it. Can we go back to Virginia? Mm-hmm. And basically they were like, yeah, okay. So if you look at a map, the District of Columbia it still looks like a square, except it stops at the river because we gave the Virginia part back. Okay. So then we named the city. It was supposed to be initially called Federal City. Federal City, District of Columbia was supposed to be the capital. And then they're like, okay, well, if he doesn't want to be the king, we'll call it Washington because it's a cult and we worship George Washington.
Sure.
And so that's what they called it. And now what I want to talk about a little bit is this idea that I've read a couple of different accounts of that say that George Washington was, for instance, LGBTQnation.com has this article, George Washington, the gay-friendly father of our country.
Yeah. Wasn't his main battle master the dude that was responsible for battle strategy? Wasn't he gay?
Well, we can talk about him first. Sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So an early Patreon episode or segment or something, I talk about Baron von Steuben.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about him first. Again, you can go back and hear a lot more of this whole thing, but he, Major General Friedrich Wilhelm von Steuben, was a military genius. Everybody's super agreed on that. And he even helped, according to one article, he's, quote, perhaps the best known gay man in American military history. He got kicked out of the Prussian military for gay indiscretions. And Benjamin Franklin, who was over in Europe at the time, recognized his genius, didn't think that anybody was going to care too much about the whole gay thing, recruited him to come to the United States and help us to win the Revolutionary War. He was made Inspector General and Major General of the Continental Army. In the Revolutionary War, he is given credit, almost as much credit as George Washington himself, General Washington, for leading us to victory over the British. He authored the Revolutionary War Drill Manual, which was used through the War of 1812.
Yeah, drill manual. Yeah, drill so good.
Yep. He was gay as hell. He brought this French twink named Duponceau with him as his personal valet.
Oh.
And he had a bejeweled carriage drawn by white horses that he pranced around all over the countryside.
Oh my God. So gay.
And apparently Washington knew all of this, and Washington allowed it to happen. At the very least, he allowed it to happen, and at best, was supportive of it. It's interesting. There's also in this article an implication that Alexander Hamilton of Hamilton, Broadway Gays Hamilton,
Yep.
Was also gay. That he was shacking up with Lieutenant Colonel John Lawrence. And that, so the four of them, von Steuben, this twink, Hamilton, and John Lawrence, all shared a tent together. There's this gay four-way that was basically running the army. And Washington was down with it.
Huh.
So he mostly had a don't ask, don't tell policy when it came to gay shit in the American military. Now, some of that is just, we need all of the people that we can get because we're losing this fucking war. So I don't care who you bone as long as you can hold a gun kind of an attitude about it.
Yeah.
But
maybe not the right kind of emotional reason for equality, but got us to the same place, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and also, you know, the winter at Valley Forge, do you know your history well enough to know about that? Basically, we almost lost the war because everybody froze to death. Like there was this place called Valley Forge, and we made a camp there for the winter to try to survive this like horrific Northeast winter. And basically, Washington was like, everybody needs to huddle for warmth. And if stuff happens while that's happening, then I don't want to know about it. But
oh, that's, if it weren't so tragic, it'd be adorable.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So there's this book written by Randy Shilts, who called Conduct Unbecoming: Gays and Lesbians in the U.S. Military. And Shilts talks about how General Washington signed the order for discharge of a soldier that was caught fucking another soldier in the ass. And basically, the law at the time was if you were caught doing the sodomy at that time, you could be flogged, imprisoned, you could be castrated, you also could be executed.
Wow.
And basically, General Washington didn't do any of those things. He signed the discharge order, and that was it. This dude just walked away. And
so that was seen as being lenient?
That was seen as being super lenient. You can contrast that with Jefferson imprisoned everybody who was gay under Virginia law as a punishment for sodomy in Virginia. And anyway, yeah, could have thrown him in jail, could have castrated him, could have killed him. Didn't do any of those things, just was like, okay, you can't work here no more, bye. Also interesting, there is the story of Robert Shirtleaf Sampson. Now, this is going to get problematic a little bit because trans identity isn't really a thing that existed in the 1700s. But Robert Shirtleaf Sampson had a relationship with a woman during his time in the Continental Army. But he was assigned female at birth. His dead name, I don't know. His name, her name was Deborah Sampson. And full on wanted to be a soldier, a male presenting soldier, because there were another kind in the Continental Army. Apparently, he was wounded several times, and in order to maintain his male identity, he did surgery on himself, carved a musket ball out of his own thigh with a penknife, and sewed the wound shut himself.
Oh my God.
Kit, rather than go to the medic and have the medic find his vagina.
Yeah.
There is a statue made by his grandson in Massachusetts. But yeah, apparently when he was eventually discovered to be assigned female at birth, similarly, General Washington didn't punish him, but rather just discharged him. Now, the problematic part here is I don't know that he used he, him pronouns for himself. He made up a male name for his records.
Yeah, that seems pretty trans.
Yeah, but we don't know. I mean, trans identity wasn't a thing, and so like, yeah. but yeah, there was that's like a full on Mulan moment, right?
Yeah, I would be the opposite. I would want to avoid the military at all costs, not like present male just to join it. Like, ugh.
Yeah. And like, I don't know. Plus, I imagine if I got shot in the leg, I'd be like, well, this is over. Like,
yeah. You know what's more important is getting the shit out of my leg instead of doing it yourself. That's pretty badass.
That is perhaps super,
if not a little stupid.
This Sampson person, or Robert Shirtleaf Sampson, I don't know what to do with their name. Whether to like, can you dead name a dead person? Anyway, but prior to his service in the Continental Army, he had been arrested in church for dressing like a man. Was arrested for dressing like a man after the war was over. And it's super interesting. The last thing to talk about here in this space, though, is the story of Pierre Charles L'Enfant, who was a French-American artist, professor, military engineer, and was asked to plan Washington, D.C. So the district was carved out. We're going to make the capital Washington. We're going to put it here. And Washington was sort of involved in all of that. And it's problematic, again, to call somebody gay when gay wasn't a thing, but he is solidly in the category of he never married, never had kids, died at a really good friend's house where he was buried in the yard.
In their yard?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But a lot of the design, the urban planning of Washington was because of this dude. He was fond of making pencil portraits of George Washington, which I think
was he in love?
He might have been in love. And Alexander Hamilton supported him and helped him get this gig, which don't know if Hamilton was a Mo or not, but some people sure thought he was.
Founding fathers more supportive of gay people than I imagined.
I think that's just, yeah. And it's not necessarily like supportive of their being gay as much as it was just like not unsupportive. You know what I mean?
Maybe like indifference towards it.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. Just over and over again in and around Washington, D.C. and the founding fathers, there's this like generally permissive shit going on about gay people. Then the last thing that I'll say, like history wise, I guess, is just that Washington, D.C. Has this weird relationship to Congress where, like, because they're not a state, Congress basically runs them and their budget, or at least did until they got some right to self-governance in the 20th century. And Washington, D.C., there have been lots of movements over the years to like make them be a state.
Right.
But largely that's fallen flat because it would be so blue of a state. Like it's basically just giving 2 more senators and a representative to the Democrats.
Which is just another reason I support it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But being so liberal, after they got the right to make their own rules, same-sex sexual activity was decriminalized in D.C. in 1993, which is pretty early. It's way before Lawrence v. Texas. And same-sex marriage was legalized in 2009, which is also really quite early, comparatively speaking. Washington state, our home state, didn't do it until 2013. So yeah, anyway, that's some history of Washington, D.C.
Well, speaking of how gay Washington, D.C. is, I'm going to tell you some data about it.
Okay, let's do it.
This is according to the Williams Institute.
Great. Do we like them? I forget.
Yes, we like them.
Okay, great.
We like them. They're a very... like they study gay shit and have great data to help support their conclusions. This report came out in December of 2023. And according to their data, 5.5% of U.S. adults identify as LGBT. And we know that's underreported because people don't come out, blah, blah, blah. But at least according to their report, we're comparing it to 5.5% of the U.S. average.
Okay.
Which equals there 13.9 million people that are LGBT in the U.S. Now, of the people aged 18 to 24, about 15% identify as LGBT. So, that's probably closer to the real number because young people are probably not more likely to be gay, just more likely to be out and would identify as such on a survey. So with all that in mind, I want to tell you about the states or territories that have the gayest populations.
Okay, hit me.
So at number 6 is Washington State, our home state.
Yeah, so gay.
So gay at 6.9%. Number 5 is New Hampshire at 7.2%.
New Hampshire? That's a reference.
Oh, okay.
What about Bob? Never mind. It's fine.
To what?
What about Bob?
Oh, I don't know. What about Bob's Burgers?
Mm-hmm.
Number 4 is Vermont, 7.4%.
famously right next to New Hampshire.
Famous friend of New Hampshire. Number 3, Delaware.
They always look like they're fucking to me from New Hampshire.
Is that how you remember it?
Yeah.
Number 3, Delaware at 7.5%.
Okay. Take that, Biden.
Yeah, it's up there in the mix. Number 2 is Oregon at 7.8%.
Wow. I mean, I guess
Portland
that checks
is pretty
out.
Gay. Yeah.
Portland is pretty gay.
And number 1 is DC at 14.3%.
Wow, that's a lot of interns. Okay.
So, as a reminder, Oregon was 7.8 and DC is 14.3. So it's almost double that of the next closest state or territory.
Oh my God.
So
wow.
DC, so gay. And
like you can't swing a dick without hitting a gay there.
Yeah. And because, as you mentioned, it's so small, there's just gays all over. It's particularly interesting when you compare the demographics of the LGBT people in DC. So nationally, LGBT people are 42% male. So you're slightly more likely to be LGBT and female. And in DC, it's 65% male.
Whoa.
So
is Washington, D.C. just bro-y, though?
It sounds like gay bros.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which I need to move there quickly.
Like a lot of like aggro competitive gay bros with like clipboards. Probably.
Mike,
right?
Stop turning me on.
Great.
And it's swampy, so everyone's all hot all the time. If you look at it, so that's looking at DC, comparing it to states, which is that a fair comparison? I don't know. If you Gallup tracks data by metro area. And so DC as a metro area, that includes Washington, Arlington, and Alexandria.
But not Baltimore?
Not Baltimore.
That's weird. Okay.
Oh, I don't know. Talk to Gallup about that. But if you look at them as that metro area, they are ranked number 7 with in terms of the number of LGBT people, the raw number, 209,000 LGBT people. Based on a percentage, again, comparing it to other metro areas, it is ranked number 18 with 4.5% LGBT people. So it is not gay. It looks really gay compared to states. It does not look as gay when you compare it to other metro areas.
Well, okay. That makes sense to me, though, because like Washington, the District of Columbia, just is Washington, right? Like right. It's basically like expanded out just so now it's all compacted in there. Yeah. Like there's just a gay pressure building up ready to burst out onto the faces of everyone else around it.
Michael, stop with this. But yeah, that does make sense to me. So it's a gay place. It's also kind of average compared to other metros. I don't know. There's a mismatch, as we'll continue to learn throughout this episode. There's a mishmash of gay and non-gay shit that happens there.
Sure. Yeah. What's number 1 on those other lists? And like if you go by metro or whatever.
Oh, probably like in terms of the raw number, it's usually New York City as the top one, and then by percentage, probably like what, San Francisco
or Atlanta. Atlanta feels really gay, but
is Atlanta that gay?
I thought it was.
That's the gay-da.
Well, thanks, Kyle.
Yeah, no problem, Mike.
I hope those gay bros find you.
I know, me too. Right? Hit me up. Yeah. HMU.
Yeah. Okay, I want to talk about some of it's a little bit history, but not really. But I want to talk about gay culture in DC.
Okay.
And then you have some stuff on this too, though, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Kind of history, kind of not.
Yeah. So the thing is, this matches up with my experience of DC every time that I've been there. The gays are all federal employees working for politicians or politics adjacent. And the thing is, you never know the next time a dickbag fuckface asshole is going to get elected. And now suddenly the Republicans have all of the power in town. And knowing that they hate gays, you're incentivized to not be out or to barely be out, or not have your queerness be part of your work persona at a very minimum.
Yeah, your work culture changes so drastically, so frequently compared to like other regular work cultures.
Yeah. And there's this guy named James Kerchick who wrote this book called Secret City, The Hidden History of Gay Washington. What?
I referenced where I got info to.
Oh, okay. What did you find out?
Well, what did you find out?
Just that, like, he outlines like all of these people who were gay and in politics throughout modern history anyway, since like FDR and forward. And this like weird dichotomy between like the things that politicians say on camera and to the newspapers don't always align with how they actually behave behind the scenes, and that there were lots of times in history when a president had to be anti-gay to a certain extent in a public-facing role while simultaneously having gay friends, employing gay people. And it's really interesting.
Yeah, I wrote down the quote from the book that says, a DC from FDR to Clinton, DC is, quote, simultaneously the gayest and most anti-gay city in America.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's got to have I don't know, like, I'm going to have to check when I'm there next week, Kyle. But if I remember correctly, I think Grindr is a lot more headless torsos than other cities. And I think
I need the face. I can't do just a headless torso.
Same, girl. Like, yeah. And where am I going with this? Hold on.
Gayish.
One of the things that stuck out to me that I thought was really interesting is apparently JFK had like a gay best friend. And the quote from the article is, JFK's best friend was gay and he has other gay male friends. JFK is perfectly comfortable around gay men, but it has no bearing on the policies of his administration. Reagan apparently had a close advisor named Lynn Nofziger who was gay. And, but Reagan had a real fear that he would be seen as being too friendly to gay people, and worried about doing anything that would make him seem gay, which that sort of checks out. I guess he's an actor. He had to know gay people. He's from California and was an actor.
Yeah. That seems like part of the issue here is coming across as seeming gay. By supporting gay people, you may come across as you're gay yourself, and that would be for the longest time a death sentence in politics. Yeah,
absolutely. And then hopefully someday we can get hot Eric Servini on the show to talk about the Deviants War. But it covers a lot of this stuff throughout the 50s and the Lavender Scare, the struggle of Frank Kameny to get justice for the fact that he was drummed out of Washington's politics because he was caught with another dude.
Yeah.
And that sort of being one of the big pushes behind the modern gay rights movement. It's really a strong argument can be made that Washington, D.C. is the birthplace of the modern gay rights movement, despite the fact that San Francisco and New York had such sort of prominent things that happened there, riots and protests, etc. The roots were already there, and a lot of them lead to Washington.
Yeah. A couple people, in addition to Frank Kameny, I wrote down a couple people in DC that made a difference. One of the people is Midge Costanza. She was a public liaison for Jimmy Carter. She brokered a meeting with gay activists, including Frank Kameny and the White House. And after she did, people in the administration called her too left. And one aide told Newsweek, everyone wishes she would disappear. And a little more than a year and a half into her job, she resigned. So she is known for helping broker an actual meeting with gay folks in the White House, which is, was of course rare. And another person is John Ford, who was the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Agriculture in the Reagan administration. And in the book, James Kerchick noted that is one of the highest positions a person could have in the federal government without an FBI background check.
Oh, wow.
And when seeing how complicit Reagan was in the pervasiveness of AIDS and the, result of it, Ford resigned in protest in 1985. And it said in the article I read that it wasn't really noticed because Reagan didn't actually address AIDS in a public speech until 1987. So that didn't really move the needle. But
yeah,
there are a couple people that, had it that were gay or helped support gay causes in DC.
Yeah. That whole thing about I don't know, Reagan waiting so long to say it, people were dying and dying and dying, and it was in the newspaper and the whole country was panicked, and yet just total radio silence. And it just unconscionable. But
it's horrifying. Fuckery. Yeah. It's interesting because in the book kind of argues about DC is both gay and one of the quotes that I wrote down is DC, quote, seems more compromised by their proximity to power than emboldened by it. And a lot of the change doesn't come from DC itself. It comes from outside activists. So while DC has a high, percentage wise, as we saw, a high representation of gay people that exist there, it doesn't seem that DC is the, you mentioned San Francisco and New York, some of the big points activists make a difference. And DC doesn't seem to be doesn't seem to be on the leading edge of making change. It seems like more people are trying to fit in and get by.
Yeah. Well, and part of it is just this, I think there's a culture of upward mobility of I'm focusing on me and my career. And, I don't know. I hesitate to call it selfishness, but it does feel like there's a certain amount of scrappy willingness to do what it takes, whether it's good for your people or not.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. And I think for some people, though, it is a privilege to be able to be your authentic self. And for some people, they may just be worried about a job. I feel like I've noticed this in my last job. I had to I very much felt like I couldn't be too authentic of myself because I didn't know people's beliefs or how they felt, but I just needed a fucking job. So, there is some privilege in being able to risk your job by being out and being very public. And I wonder how many people struggle with that same thing, especially in DC.
Did you watch Fellow Travelers?
I did not, but I know you talked about it.
Yeah. I mean, I loved that show. It's, there's a lot to be said for it, but it's Matt Bomer and Jonathan Bailey is his fuck buddy, husband. I don't know. It's interesting, but it a lot of the show takes place during the McCarthy hearings, and really sort of takes advantage of this persona that we're talking about of the I'm hiding who I am because it's bad for my career in an environment where politics reigns supreme and optics is everything.
Right.
And it's really interesting. You should watch it. I think you'd like it.
Is it on Hulu?
Showtime?
Oh.
Paramount Plus.
Oh. I'm not going to watch that.
All right. Well,
I'm gonna steal someone's Paramount Plus login to watch it. Speaking of gay shit that's happened in DC, can I tell you about the marches on Washington?
I want you to definitely tell me about the marches on Washington.
Okay, so there have been 3 big ones that I'm going to tell you about. The first National March on Washington for Lesbian and Gay Rights was a political rally that took place on October 14th, 1979. There was estimated attendance of about 100,000 people there.
Okay.
But I'm not going to talk about
the million. If you talk about the Million Mom March, I'm out.
I'm not going to tell you anything about the Million Mom March, which is really comprised of probably 5 moms.
Yeah.
The bigger one, I think, that a lot of people think of when you think of a National March on Washington is the second National March on Washington for Lesbian and Gay Rights. And that took place on October 11th, 1987. That is also called the Great March. I had not heard that until I read the Wikipedia article on this.
Is that the one where the AIDS quilt got started?
That is the one where the AIDS quilt got started. It made its first public appearance there. It's also called the Names Project AIDS Memorial Quilt. Celebrated people who died from AIDS-related causes and had over 1,900 panels and covered an area larger than a football field, which I didn't realize how fucking huge it was. I mean, I know it's big, but like football fields are very big.
If I had a nickel.
This march had 750,000 people estimated in attendance. This is the first time there was national coverage of ACT UP, an important organization, the AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power. And this march was prompted by the AIDS crisis, which, as we mentioned, Reagan was a fuckface asshole for not acknowledging for a long time. And it was also inspired by, in 1986, there was a Supreme Court ruling of Bowers v. Hardwick, which upheld the criminalization of sodomy between two consenting men in the privacy of their home. That is what Lawrence v. Texas would later invalidate. But that ruling had just come out the year before this march.
Yep. Which just goes to show, too, that like whatever the Supreme Court decides, the Supreme Court can undecide. They've done it over and over and over again. So the idea that like we thought Roe v. Wade was forever, fucking not. We think Lawrence v. Texas and Obergefell v. Hodges are forever. They don't have to be. Like,
I hate reminders like that. I mean, you're so right, and it's important to remember, and it's a horrifying realization that those things that we now take for granted are not permanent.
Yep. I also think like if that happens, I will leave, but then that's exactly what they want us to do. So I don't know.
Yeah, there's something to be said for staying and fighting. And anyway, I didn't realize this. In commemoration of this Second National March on Washington, National Coming Out Day was established. So that is why it is on October 11th. That's
the picture of the like weird stick figure with his foot out the door, right?
Coming out the door. Yeah. And then the third one, the March on Washington for Lesbian, Gay, and Bi Equal Rights and Liberation. Bi people finally made it in the name. Was a political rally that took place on April 25th, 1993. There were an estimated 1 million people in attendance, which makes it one of the largest protests in American history. The AIDS quilt made another appearance here, and performers included the Indigo Girls, which that's the most lesbian thing I've ever heard. Judith Light, Melissa Etheridge. No, that's the most lesbian thing. RuPaul, Nancy Pelosi, Madonna, Martina Navratilova, and Ian McKellen. So a bunch of, by this point, this march is getting so big that we have Madonna performing. And so, yeah, that's just a little bit of the marches on Washington.
Have you ever been to like a gay rights march? Like I know that we did the George Floyd march together, but like I don't think I've ever done like a gay protest before.
I did when Prop 8 happened. I did a march for that one.
That's cool.
Yeah.
How was it?
It was very emboldening and heartbreaking and satisfying to feel like you're doing something. It's one of those things where like, does your vote matter? Does each individual person being there actually matter? And you feel like you're part of something bigger, and you're like, it's important that I'm here to show how big of an issue this is to people. So it's a lot of mixture of feelings, and it's a lot of fucking walking. I get, I'm tired by the end of it. But it's like one of those, like, I feel like I accomplished something just by showing up and walking around for a little bit. That's a satisfying feeling. I wish I did more of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, me too. But I also feel like we live in a part of the world where it doesn't happen that often because like we're pretty okay.
Yeah. How many like there, like even Pride this year. I mean, not just this year, but every year, like, the marches are like filled with corporations that are, like, it's not like we're marching for, it's not like doesn't feel the same as like marching as a protest anymore.
Yeah.
So what kind of protests, like actual activists and protests, do you have that you could be a part of?
Right. Yeah. Let's start one, Kyle. What do you say?
Okay, let's do it.
We'll just I don't know, just say we're real mad and we'll make big signs.
Yeah.
We'll have everybody dress up.
Invite all of our friends, have rainbow shit.
Lots of glitter so we can trans the fish.
Yeah, glitter everywhere. I love this.
Yeah.
We can block out the streets and march down it and throw bricks at stuff.
Yeah. Do we do it? I don't know.
I'm sure there's plenty more to talk about when we talk about DC, but
I mean, I have some stuff about like DC bars, but unfortunately it's like kind of sad.
Oh, well, now you have to tell me about it.
Well, because they have all of these like important bars that like have closed. There's this bar called the Nob Hill. It was opened in 1957. It was one of the first African-American gay bars in the United States. And then it is no more.
Oh,
there was like the one of the longest continuously operating lesbian bars in the United States opened in 1971. It was called Phase One, and it just closed in 2016.
Oh, that's not even a COVID casualty. That was just a lesbian bar casualty.
Yeah. Let's see. Joanna's was a gay bar in the 60s that apparently was one of the first to offer same-sex dancing.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know.
So just a lot of famous historic bars that have
don't
closed
exist
down.
no more.
Huh.
Yeah.
That is sad.
I'm gonna have to do some poking around. I did a local gay bar review for a DC bar once before, I think. I'll have to go back when I'm there next week and report back.
Yeah, see how it's changed. You're gonna report on the original and the revised rating.
Oh, yeah. Too bad I haven't kept track of any of them.
Oh.
We can put Derek on it.
Okay. Good call.
All right, I guess we did it.
All right, I guess so.
Let us know what you think. Republicans? No.
Yeah, no, wait.
Senator? I don't know, Kyle. I'm so tired.
I think that means it's time for the episode to be over.
Okay. Let's take a break then.
Break.
This is the part where Mike and Kyle take a break.
So are we back?
We're back. Just a heads up this week, because we are recording this in advance of Pride weekend, recording it early. We're skipping out on our Patreon bonus segment just this week. That's our Pride celebration, our Pride gift to ourselves. We're taking a break this week.
Yeah, go. Just normally Patreon's like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Just like use that time to not listen to us and go drink something. That's what I want.
I love that. Or I would say, or eat something, because food is delicious.
Yes. Why not both?
Why not both?
And then wash it down.
Yeah. Love that for you. You see, you'll have a great Friday in spite of no Patreon segment.
Yeah. All right. We're going to do our Gayest and Straightest, but first, our website is gayishpodcast.com.
You can find us on Instagram at Gayish Podcast, where our producer Derek posts and asks for your gayest and straightest every week. So you can join in on that, or find out where all of our communities are, like our Discord or our Facebook group at gayishpodcast.com/contact.
Our hotline, you can send us text messages or leave us voicemails, especially if it's your Gayest or Straightest, because we want to play them on the air. That's fun. It's 5855-GAYISH. That's 585-542-9474. Standard rates apply. Our email is gayishpodcast@gmail.com. And our physical mailing address is Post Office Box 19882, Seattle, Washington, 98109.
Do you want to do our Gayest and Straightest?
Let's do our Gayest and Straightest.
Okay, I'll go.
Okay.
So my gayest is I've been going for runs, and I feel like gays are supposed to be fit.
Yeah.
And I am not really a fit gay, but I'm trying to be. So I've been exercising.
How do you feel? Do you think you're better than me?
My straightest is that it feels horrible. I'm so out of shape, and I am not one of those fitness gays. At least not yet. Maybe I'll be running marathons soon, but that time is not here. It's been pretty shitty.
Great. Don't your parents do wacky shit like that?
My mom has run marathons. She's run Boston, New York. Like she's run major marathons. Yeah.
Great. Crazy runs in the family. All right.
What about you?
What about me? So let's see. The gayest thing about me this week was making the mistake of at work opening my suitcase and having my douche bulb almost fall out.
Oh no.
Yeah, it was wrapped up in this jacket that I had, and I pulled the jacket out of the suitcase, and I was like, "What's that shifting and moving down there?" I was like, "Oh God, I know what that is." So I'd like catch it. Yeah. I mean, they know I'm gay. I don't know what anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but it's different when you see the gay evidence.
Yeah, that's true. And then the straightest thing about me this week was just like this afternoon, I went and had lunch, and I ordered a twisted tea.
What's that?
That's the cans. That's the iced tea with the booze in it.
Oh,
just believe me, it's straight.
Okay, I believe you.
It's like the kind of thing that people drink in Florida, unironically. You know? Yeah, okay. We have a listener's Gayest and Straightest this week, do we?
Yes, we do. This one comes from
Canada.
Spencer from Canada.
Yeah.
Hi guys, this is Spencer from Canada. I wanted to call my Gayest and Straightest of the day. The gayest would be I'm currently leaving a somewhat friends with benefit situation where 4 people kind of randomly had sex on the couch and then sat down and listened to old Eurovision tapes of Cher, and I did not know Cher was on Eurovision, but apparently she is. And the straightest of the day would be at the wine I work at, I was unloading a bunch of wine, and I don't think the label was kind of straight aside from like working out, but I don't know. But awesome. I love you guys. Love the show. Keep doing good work. Bye.
I didn't know Cher was on Eurovision.
I didn't know that either. That's maybe my straightest now.
I feel like someday I'm just going to watch them all and my life will change. I'll grow a new unicorn horn. It'll be magical.
That's how I feel about RuPaul's.
Mm-hmm.
Someday I'll just all of a sudden become a RuPaul gay.
Did we do it?
Yeah, we did it.
We did it. Thank you to everybody who lives in Washington, D.C., or the swamp formerly known as the Potomac.
Yeah, thanks to all the DC homosexuals. And thank you to our super gap bridgers. Thank you to Locomotive, Kaylee Adams, Kit Oliver, Kobe Gordon, Squoggle, Pip, Andrew Bugby, William Bryant, John Crawley, Yost Osel, Jonathan Montañez, Wadu, Forrest Nail, Patrick Martin, Steve Douglas, Explosive Lasagna, Michael Covington, Just Jamie, Thomas B, Dusty Sands, A.E. Coleman, Chris Cacciatorians, and Jerome York. Thank you for your support.
Thank you for your money. That's it. This has been Gayish from the Chris Cacciatorian Studios. I'm Mike Johnson.
I'm Kyle Getz. Until next week, be butch, be fabulous, be you. See ya.
See ya. Happy birthday, America.
Happy birthday, America. You did it. I'm going to sneeze.
Okay.
Nope, it's just going to stay there and tickle my nose.
It's painful to watch. I want you to sneeze so bad, Kyle.
Me too. Ugh.
Like a nosegasm.
It's just staying there in my nose, not coming out.
Do you ever like put your finger under your nose and hum?
Does that help?
It helps me.
No.
No?
Did
All
nothing.
right.
Okay.